a hard time. Like the different incomes that I have from 2024, they were trying not to count one of them. The lady would not receive the welcome letters, like the letters that detailed the information that I had. She wouldn't take them. She wouldn't take the pay stubs from the job. She said, oh, it's under $400, so we don't count that anyway. They weren't trying to take documentation like I gave it to them. So I emailed now to prove and document, hey, I have different jobs here that I'm trying to give information for. She refuses to take it. Like they're trying to make me seem like I'm trying to hide funding. So I made sure I documented with her supervisor, with her, with everybody, everything she said that she wouldn't take, which at this point, the 2 schools that I worked for, she won't take the documentation for one of them, which I only worked 1 week. She said, we're not going to take it because you only worked 1 week. But a second ago, you said you wouldn't take the other company because it was less than $400. The 1 week that I worked with in the second school, I made $456. So you should take it. She won't take that. Right? So they won't even take the money. So then I don't know if they're trying to make it seem like I'm hiding funding, but I'm putting all of this out there. And I also sent that information via email that I'm trying to give this the information. She won't take them. She took whatever she wanted. They're trying to give me the runaround for the first school that I worked at, that I reported to HRA and I reported everything to everybody with. I gave her everything she asked me for. She asked me for the welcome email, which would detail the amount I made per hour, how many hours a week I would work, how many days a week I was set to work. And then she asked me for an email that stated when my start date was and then when was the last day that I worked the job. I gave her all of this information. Now she's telling me she wants me to go back to the job and have the job print out a letter with all of that information on one document now. So she's not taking that either. It's like she's making it hard for me to report my income. So I'm just documenting this in the email address. Like they're doing something fraudulent. They're trying to get me to defraud the government or make it seem like I'm hiding income. I gave them all of them. I worked for one school. I don't think it's even illegal to say the schools that I worked for. I worked for NIDC. I worked for New York Kid Club at this point. I've worked for Dutch X and I've worked for MXI. I've given her all of the information for that, the welcome letters, the income amount. I've given them the start and stop days. I get it. If she's refusing to take the documents for it, she's refusing to even report it. Like this is starting to be crazy. And then when I was in the office talking to her, the guy who did most of the defrauding, she said that he never worked for her department now. I have documentation and proof that he did work for your department. What do you mean he never worked for your department? And now she's saying that there was no guy with that name that ever worked at the company. Like they're doing something very funny. Like I said, a lot of this stuff is like connected. And what relates this back to my ex, who is also, like I said, in direct connection with the music industry. He used to be a security guard for a rapper who he's still in contact with. He also lives in the same apartment, not the same exact apartment. We live in the same management company. I live in Progressive Management in the Bronx. He lives in Progressive Management in Brooklyn. We both live in the same thing. And it's so funny because when I was in the shelter, I didn't find this apartment. I didn't sign up for this apartment. This was an emergency grant program. So the state selected me to come back in this apartment. And like I thought when it happened, if you look at my state ID still says his address on it. So I'm thinking to myself, if I'm in the shelter system and they go and my address is connected to a complex that gives federal subsidies, it makes sense for them to have selected me to just put me back with the same people because they're doing their best in New York to eliminate poverty. We were in a housing crisis a couple years ago. I don't live in a shelter now, so I don't know whether or not we're still in that housing crisis. It was when we had all of those immigrants in the city. But